The world was spinning, and Isla Brennan couldn't make it stop. She clutched Lily tighter against her chest, her daughter's small body the only anchor keeping her tethered to consciousness. 3 days without proper food. 2 nights sleeping in bus stations. A fever that had started as a whisper and grown into a roar, burning through her like wildfire. She just needed to make it a few more blocks. Just a few more steps. There was a shelter on 8th Street. She'd seen it on the map at the library. They could rest there, get warm, figure out what came next. But her legs had other ideas. The sidewalk rushed up to meet her. She twisted at the last second, taking the impact on her shoulder, curling her body around Lily to protect her from the fall. Pain exploded through her arm. The sky wheeled overhead. Gray clouds, bare trees, the distant wail of a siren. "Mama?" Lily's voice was small and scared. "Mama, wake up." "I'm trying, baby, I'm trying." But the darkness was pulling her under, and she didn't have the strength to fight it anymore. The last thing she saw before the world went black was a pair of expensive shoes stopping in front of her face. Killian Callahan had been having a bad day. The shipment from Cork was delayed. The Donovans were making noise on the south side again. And his sister Fiona had thrown a nurse out of the house for the 3rd time this month, screaming that she didn't need help, didn't need anyone, would rather rot in her wheelchair than accept another minute of his guilt-fueled charity. He'd stepped outside the restaurant for air, for silence, for 5 minutes away from the endless demands of running an empire he'd never wanted. That's when the woman collapsed at his feet. She was young, mid-20s maybe, with auburn hair that had escaped from a messy braid and skin so pale it was almost translucent. She wore a coat 2 sizes too big, jeans with holes at the knees, sneakers that had seen better years. And in her arms, clutched like the most precious thing in the world, was a little girl. The child looked up at him with huge blue eyes. My mama fell down. Something clenched in Killian's chest. He crouched down, reaching for the woman's shoulder, and froze. The bracelet on her wrist caught the gray afternoon light, a delicate silver chain, tarnished with age, with a charm in the shape of a Celtic knot. Handmade, one of a kind. His wife had worn that bracelet every day of her life. His daughter had inherited it after the funeral. And when Kara had disappeared 3 years ago, the bracelet had vanished with her. "Boss?" Declan's voice came from behind him, concerned. "Everything all right?" Killian couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. His hand hovered over the woman's wrist, trembling in a way it hadn't trembled in decades. "Get the car." His voice came out rough, unrecognizable. "Now." "What about both of them? Bring them to the house, and call Dr. Riley." He finally touched the bracelet, his fingers brushing the familiar knot that Margaret had worn against her skin for 20 years. "Tell him it's an emergency." The woman stirred at his touch, her eyes fluttering open. They were green, deep and vivid, glazed with fever but still fighting. She tried to pull away, to shield the child, her cracked lips forming words she didn't have the strength to speak. "Easy." Killian kept his voice low, gentle. The voice he'd used with Kara when she was small, before the world had hardened them both. "You're safe. I'm going to help you." "Lily, my daughter." "She's fine. She's right here." He looked at the child, who was watching him with a solemn intensity that reminded him painfully of someone else. "What's your name, little one?" "Lily." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Lily Brennan. My mama's sick." "I know. I'm going to make her better." He didn't know if it was a promise he could keep, but he made it anyway. "Can you be brave for me?" Lily nodded, her small hand finding her mother's and holding on tight. Killian lifted the woman into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, all sharp angles and hollow spaces, and carried her toward the waiting car. His men formed a perimeter without being asked, scanning the street for threats, confused but obedient. They didn't understand. How could they? They didn't know about Margaret, about Kara, about the bracelet that had haunted his dreams for 3 years, the last piece of his daughter he had left. This woman knew something, had been somewhere, met someone, had crossed paths with Kara at some point in the past 3 years. And Killian Callahan was going to find out where. The woman, Isla, according to the ID in her pocket, woke 6 hours later in a bedroom that probably cost more than her childhood home. She jackknifed upright, panic flooding her system, her eyes darting around the unfamiliar space. Four-poster bed, silk sheets, heavy curtains, a fire crackling in an actual fireplace. Where was she? How had she gotten here? Where was Lily? The name tore out of her throat. She's in the next room. A voice from the shadows, deep, accented with something Irish, calm in a way that made her skin prickle. Sleeping. She's been fed and bathed and tucked into a bed with more stuffed animals than she knows what to do with. A man emerged from the corner and Isla's breath caught. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair silvered at the temples and a face that looked like it had been carved by someone who understood both beauty and brutality. A scar cut through his left eyebrow. His eyes were the color of a winter sky, pale blue, almost gray, sharp as broken ice. He wore a dark sweater and trousers that probably cost more than 6 months of her old salary, and he moved with the easy confidence of someone who had never been afraid of anything in his life. But it was the way he was looking at her that made her blood run cold, not with threat, not with desire, but with an intensity that felt like being X-rayed, like he was searching for something in her face and couldn't find it. "Who are you?" Her voice came out hoarse. "Where am I?" "My name is Killian Callahan. You're in my home." He crossed to the chair beside her bed and sat down, his movements deliberate, unthreatening. "You collapsed outside my restaurant 6 hours ago. My doctor says you have a fever of 103. You're severely dehydrated, and you haven't eaten properly in at least a week." Isla's hand went instinctively to her wrist, to the bracelet. Still there. Still safe. Killian's eyes followed the movement. Something flickered in their depths. "Where did you get that?" The question was quiet, controlled. But Isla heard the edge beneath it, the barely leashed desperation of a man who had been searching for something for a very long time. It was a gift. She pulled her wrist closer to her chest. "From a friend." "What friend?" "I don't. Why does it matter?" "It matters." He leaned forward, and for the first time she saw the cracks in his composure. The grief etched into the lines around his eyes. The hope he was trying so hard to suppress. "That bracelet belonged to my wife. She wore it every day until she died. Then my daughter wore it. Until she disappeared." Isla's heart stopped. "Your daughter?" "Kara." The name came out like a prayer. Kara Callahan. 17 years old when she left. Red hair, green eyes, stubborn as hell. His voice cracked. "She's been missing for 3 years, and you're wearing her mother's bracelet." The room tilted. Isla pressed her hand to her forehead, trying to think through the fog of fever and exhaustion. Kara. The girl who had found her in that alley 2 years ago, beaten and bleeding with nowhere to go. The girl who had cleaned her wounds and given her money and pressed a silver bracelet into her palm with tears streaming down her face. "Take it. It's the only good thing I have left, and I want it to go to someone who deserves it. Someone who's actually trying to be good." "I met her," Isla whispered. 2 years ago. In Boston. She saved my life." Killian went utterly still. "She found me in an alley. My husband had just..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't go back to that night. "She helped me, stayed with me until I was safe. And then she gave me this bracelet and disappeared." Where? The word was barely audible. Where did she go? I don't know. I swear to you, I don't know. Tears burned in Isla's eyes. She said she was looking for something. A fresh start. She said she couldn't go home. That home was... She stopped. That home was what? Isla looked at him. At this man who was clearly dangerous, clearly powerful, clearly capable of terrible things, but who was also looking at her like she held the answer to every question that had ever mattered. She said home was a cage, Isla whispered, and she'd rather die free than live trapped. Killian Callahan closed his eyes, and in the firelight, Isla saw something she never expected to see on the face of a man like him. A single tear, tracking down his weathered cheek. Then help me find her. His voice was raw, broken. Help me bring my daughter home, and I swear to you, Isla Brennan, whatever you're running from, whoever's chasing you, I will keep you and your daughter safe for the rest of your lives. Isla thought of Lily, sleeping in the next room, thought of the men who were hunting her, the danger that followed her everywhere she went, thought of the girl who had saved her life and given her the only hope she had. Okay, she said. I'll help you. She had no idea what she was agreeing to, but something told her that her life was about to change forever. The next 3 days passed in a blur of fever dreams and fragmented waking. Isla surfaced occasionally to find cool cloths on her forehead, medicine being pressed to her lips, soft voices murmuring reassurances. Once she woke to find Lily curled beside her, her small hand patting Isla's cheek. The nice man says you're getting better, Mama. He gave me pancakes shaped like a bunny. The nice man. God help them both. On the 4th day, Isla woke with a clear head and a desperate need for answers. She found them waiting for her, both Killian and a woman she hadn't seen before. The woman sat in a wheelchair by the window, her dark hair cropped short, her face a feminine echo of Killian's sharp features. She was beautiful, but her beauty was hardened by something cold, bitter, the kind of armor that came from wounds that had never properly healed. You're awake. Killian rose from his chair. How do you feel? Like I was hit by a truck. Isla pushed herself upright, her arms trembling with the effort. Where's Lily? In the garden with Mrs. O'Brien, our housekeeper. He paused. She's been asking about you constantly. That child loves you more than anything in the world. She's all I have. Not anymore. He gestured to the woman in the wheelchair. This is my sister Fiona. Fiona, this is Isla Brennan, the woman I told you about. Fiona's eyes, the same winter sky blue as her brother's, swept over Isla with barely concealed disdain. The stray you dragged in off the street. How charitable. Fiona. Don't. Fiona's voice was sharp as broken glass. I'm not interested in making nice with your latest project, Killian. I came because you said she knew something about Kara. So talk. Isla looked between them, the tension crackling like static electricity, and understood something that hadn't been in Killian's explanation. This family wasn't just grieving. It was fractured. Broken in ways that went deeper than a missing daughter. I told your brother everything I know. Isla kept her voice steady. I met Kara once, 2 years ago. She helped me, gave me this bracelet. Then she disappeared. I don't know where she went or why she left. Convenient. It's the truth. The truth. Fiona laughed. A harsh, humorless sound. In this family, truth is just another weapon. You'll learn that soon enough, if you stay. Fiona. Killian's voice dropped, a warning. Enough. His sister held his gaze for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then she wheeled herself toward the door, pausing just before she reached it. Your daughter's in the garden, she said without turning around. She's been picking flowers for you all morning. Yellow ones. She says they're your favorite. Then she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her. Silence settled over the room. Isla let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. I'm sorry. Killian's voice was heavy. My sister has been through a great deal. She doesn't trust easily. What happened to her? An attack. 5 years ago. Meant for me. His jaw tightened. A car bomb. She was paralyzed from the waist down. She's been difficult since then. Pushed away everyone who tried to help her. Fired every nurse, every caregiver, every therapist I've hired. Isla thought of the woman's bitter eyes, the armor she wore like a second skin. She recognized that look, had worn it herself once. She's not difficult, Isla said quietly. She's angry. There's a difference. Killian looked at her, really looked, and something shifted in his expression. Surprise? Maybe? Or recognition. You understand that. I understand feeling like your body has betrayed you, like the world has taken everything and left you with nothing but rage. She met his eyes. I was married to a monster for 4 years. I know what it's like to be trapped in a cage of someone else's making. The silence stretched between them. Outside, Isla could hear the distant sound of Lily's laughter, bright and untroubled. What happened to your husband? He's dead. The words came out flat. His family thinks I know where he hid their money. I don't. But they won't stop looking for me until they're sure. Who are they? The Murrays, out of Chicago. Something flickered in Killian's eyes. Recognition, and something darker. Calculation. Sean Murray's operation? You know them? I know of them. Small time, but vicious. He paused. They're not a threat to me, which means they're not a threat to you. Not while you're under my roof. I can't stay here. I have to keep moving, keep Lily safe. Lily is safe. So are you. He moved closer, and Isla was suddenly aware of how small the room was, how large he was, how the air seemed to thicken when he stood near her. I'm offering you a deal, Isla. Stay here. Help me find my daughter. In return, I'll protect you and Lily from the Murrays. Permanently. What does permanently mean? It means they'll never bother you again. His voice was soft, dangerous. It means your daughter will grow up without fear. It means you'll have a home, a salary, a life that doesn't involve running. And all I have to do is help you find Kara. That's all? She should say no. Should take Lily and run, the way she'd been running for 2 years. But she was so tired. So bone-deep exhausted from the constant flight, the endless fear, the weight of keeping her daughter alive in a world that wanted them both dead. And there was something else. Something in the way Killian looked at her. Not as a tool or a means to an end, but as a person. Someone worth protecting. There's one more thing. The words came out before she could stop them. Your sister. Let me try. Try what? To help her. I trained as a nurse before everything fell apart. I specialized in rehabilitation care, physical therapy, mobility assistance, the kind of support she needs but won't accept. Isla lifted her chin. Let me work with her, not as someone you hired, but as someone who understands what she's going through. Killian was quiet for a long moment. His pale eyes searched her face, looking for something she couldn't name. She'll fight you. I know. She'll say terrible things. Try to drive you away. I know. Why would you want to put yourself through that? Isla thought about it. About the woman in the wheelchair with her bitter eyes and her broken body. About Kara, who had saved a stranger in an alley and given away her mother's bracelet. About Lily, laughing in the garden, finally safe. Because everyone deserves someone who won't give up on them. She held his gaze. Even the people who've given up on themselves. Something cracked in Killian Callahan's careful composure. For just a moment she saw the man beneath the crime lord, the father, the brother, the widower, who had lost everything and was still fighting to hold the pieces together. "All right," he said quietly. "We have a deal." He extended his hand. Isla took it. His grip was warm and strong, and when his fingers closed around hers, she felt something shift between them. Something that had nothing to do with deals or debts or missing daughters. Something that felt dangerously like hope. Fiona Callahan threw a book at Isla's head on the first day. A hardcover, too. Some thick biography that whistled past Isla's ear and slammed into the wall hard enough to leave a dent. "Get out." Fiona's voice was ice. "I don't need a nursemaid. I don't need a friend. I don't need whatever bleeding heart redemption project my brother has convinced you I am." Isla bent down, picked up the book, and set it calmly on the nightstand. "That was a good throw. Your upper body strength is impressive." She pulled a chair across the room and sat down just out of arm's reach. "We'll start with that. Build on what you have instead of mourning what you've lost." "Are you deaf?" I said, "Get out." "I heard you." Isla crossed her legs and settled in. "But I promised your brother I'd try, and I'm not a quitter. So here's how this is going to work. You can throw things at me, scream at me, say the cruelest things you can think of. I'm not leaving. Eventually, you'll get tired of fighting, and then maybe, just maybe, we can actually talk." Fiona stared at her. Her hands gripped the armrests of her wheelchair so hard her knuckles went white. "You have no idea what I've been through." "You're right. I don't." Isla held her gaze. "But I know what it's like to wake up every morning and hate the body you're trapped in. I know what it's like to feel helpless while the world moves on without you. And I know what it's like to push everyone away because it's easier than admitting you need them." Something flickered in Fiona's eyes. A crack in the armor. There and gone. "My brother told you about the bomb. He told me it was meant for him, that you were paralyzed because of his enemies." Isla paused. "Is that why you're angry? Because he blames himself?" "I'm angry because everyone looks at me with pity." The words came out raw, ragged. "Because I used to dance. Did you know that? I was a dancer. Classical ballet. And now I can't even—" She stopped, swallowed. "Now I can't even get out of bed without help." "Then let me help you." Isla leaned forward. "Not because I pity you, because I think you're stronger than you know, and I want to see what you can become when you stop fighting yourself." The silence stretched. Fiona's jaw worked, her eyes glistening with tears she refused to shed. "Fine." The word was barely audible. 1 week. If I still hate you after 1 week, you leave me alone. Deal." It took 3 weeks, but Fiona stopped throwing things. By the end of the first month, she was doing exercises twice a day. Upper body strengthening, core stability, the foundation of a rehabilitation program Isla designed specifically for her. She still complained constantly, still made cutting remarks, still tried to push Isla away at least once a week. But she also started talking about the dancing she missed, about the woman she'd been before the bomb, confident, fierce, in love with a man who'd left her the moment he saw the wheelchair, about the rage that lived inside her like a second heartbeat, always present, never quiet, and about Kara. "She was the only one who didn't treat me different," Fiona said one afternoon, as Isla helped her through a stretching routine. "After the accident, everyone else walked on eggshells, acted like I was made of glass. But Kara would yell at me, fight with me, tell me to stop being such a miserable bitch." "You miss her?" "Every day." Fiona's voice cracked. She was the only person who understood, who saw past the chair to the person I still was. And then she left. And I— She stopped, looked away. "I blamed Killian. I still do." Sometimes. He was never there. Always working. Always building his empire. Always putting the family business before his actual family. Is it any wonder she ran? Isla didn't answer, but she thought about it that night, lying in bed, listening to Lily breathe softly beside her. Killian Callahan was a complicated man. She'd seen his ruthlessness, heard the phone calls he took behind closed doors, watched the way his men deferred to him with a mixture of fear and respect. But she'd also seen his tenderness, the way he read bedtime stories to Lily, doing all the voices with surprising skill. The way he sat with his sister even when she screamed at him to leave. The way he looked at the bracelet on Isla's wrist, grief and hope warring in his eyes. He wasn't a good man. She knew that. But he wasn't purely bad either. And lately, she'd started noticing other things. The way his gaze lingered on her when he thought she wasn't looking. The way his voice softened when he said her name. The way his hand brushed hers when they passed in the hallway, as if by accident, but lasting just a moment too long. "You're staring." Isla jumped. They were in the library. She'd been reading while Lily napped, and Killian had appeared in the doorway without a sound. He did that. Moved like a ghost, despite his size. "I was thinking." "About what?" "About you. About whether I'm falling for a man I should be running from. About whether any of this is real, or just another cage dressed up as sanctuary." "About Kara," she said instead. "Fiona told me some things. About how she felt before she left." Killian's expression tightened. He crossed the room and sat in the chair across from her, his movements heavy with exhaustion. "I know I failed her. You don't have to say it." "I wasn't going to." Isla set down her book. "But I was going to ask. Have your people found anything? Any leads?" "Nothing solid. A few sightings, but they never pan out." He ran a hand over his face. "It's been 3 years. For all I know, she doesn't want to be found." "She gave away her mother's bracelet." Isla touched the silver chain at her wrist. "She wouldn't have done that if she'd given up completely. Some part of her was still hoping." "Hoping for what?" "That someone would come looking." She met his eyes. "That someone would fight for her, the way she didn't know how to fight for herself." The silence stretched between them. Killian's pale eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You see the best in people," he said quietly, "even people who don't deserve it. Everyone deserves someone who sees the best in them." "Even me?" The question hung in the air, loaded, dangerous. "Even you," Isla whispered. He leaned forward, so close she could see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes, smell the faint scent of whiskey and cedar, and for a moment she thought he might kiss her. Then his phone buzzed, and the spell shattered. He glanced at the screen, and his expression went cold. Hard. The crime lord was back. The vulnerable man vanished as if he'd never existed. "I have to take this." He rose abruptly. "We'll talk later." He was gone before she could respond. The attack came 2 days later. Isla was walking Lily home from the garden when she saw them, 2 men in dark suits, standing by the gate with their hands in their pockets. They weren't Killian's men. She knew all of Killian's men by now. Her blood turned to ice. "Lily." She kept her voice calm, light. "Remember the game we played? Hide and seek?" "Yes, Mama." "I need you to hide, right now, behind the big rose bush. Can you do that for me?" Lily's eyes went wide, but she nodded and scrambled off without a word. Isla's heart cracked at how practiced her daughter was at this, at running, at hiding, at disappearing when danger came. The men approached. "Mrs. Brennan." The taller one smiled, a thin, cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Or should I say, Mrs. Murray? Your father-in-law sends his regards." "I don't know where the money is." We're not here about the money. Not anymore. His smile widened. Word is you've made some interesting friends. Killian Callahan, the Irish king himself. He tilted his head. The Donovans are very curious about that. Very curious indeed. I don't know anything about the Donovans. No? That's a shame. Because they know quite a bit about you. He pulled out a photograph and held it up. Cute kid. Be a shame if something happened to her. Rage erupted in Isla's chest, hot, blinding, primal. If you touch my daughter, I will kill you myself. The man laughed. Relax, sweetheart. We're not here for her. Not yet. He tucked the photo away. Tell Callahan that the Donovans want a meeting, and tell him that if he doesn't show, we'll start collecting collateral. He glanced toward the rose bush where Lily was hiding. Starting with the pretty little things. They were gone before Isla could scream. She ran to Lily, scooped her up, and held her so tight the child squeaked in protest. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. She had to find Killian, had to tell him what happened, because the Donovans weren't just threatening her anymore. They were threatening everyone she loved. Killian's reaction was terrifying in its stillness. He didn't shout, didn't rage. He simply listened as Isla recounted every word, every threat, every detail of the men's faces. And when she finished, he sat in absolute silence for a long moment, his pale eyes fixed on something she couldn't see. Then he made a phone call. Within an hour, the estate was a fortress. Armed men at every entrance, security cameras activated. Lily and Fiona moved to the safe room in the basement, protected by a steel door and 3 guards who looked like they could stop a tank. I want you in there too. Killian found Isla in the hallway, her arms wrapped around herself, her whole body still trembling with residual fear. I'm not hiding. Isla dash dash. They threatened my daughter. They came into your home and threatened a 3-year-old child. Her voice shook with fury. I'm not hiding in a basement while you deal with this alone. This isn't your fight. The hell it isn't. She stepped closer, forcing him to meet her eyes. You promised to protect us. But protection isn't just walls and guards and locked doors. It's standing together. It's fighting together. She grabbed his arm. Let me help. Something shifted in his expression. The cold mask cracked, revealing the man beneath. The father, the brother, the widower who had lost too much already. If anything happens to you, nothing's going to happen to me. Not with you there. He stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. Stay close to me. Do exactly what I say. And if I tell you to run, I'll run. She squeezed his arm. I promise. The meeting was set for midnight at an abandoned warehouse on the docks. Isla rode in the back of Killian's car, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She'd changed into dark clothes, practical shoes, the kind of outfit she used to wear when she was running from the Murrays, the kind that let you move fast and fight hard if you had to. Killian sat beside her, his presence solid and reassuring despite the danger ahead. His hand found hers in the darkness, and he held on tight. Whatever happens in there, he said quietly, remember that Lily needs you. Fiona needs you. A pause. I need you. Killian, I know this isn't the time. I know we barely know each other, but He stopped, swallowed. You've changed something in me, Isla. Something I thought was dead, and I'm not willing to lose that. Not tonight. Not ever. She leaned across the seat and kissed him. It wasn't soft or romantic. It was desperate. A collision of fear and need, and the fierce, burning hope that they might actually survive this. His hand came up to cup her face, and for one perfect moment, nothing existed but the two of them. Then the car stopped, and the moment ended. Stay behind me, Killian said. And remember, run if you tell me to run. I know. They stepped out into the cold night air. The warehouse loomed before them, dark and menacing, its broken windows like empty eye sockets. Killian's men fanned out around them, weapons drawn, moving with silent precision. The Donovans were already inside. Isla could see the glow of lights through the gaps in the walls. They walked in together. The interior was vast and echoing, filled with the smell of rust and salt water. A group of men stood at the center, arranged around a makeshift table littered with bottles and ashtrays. At their head sat a man Isla recognized from newspaper photographs, Declan Donovan, patriarch of the family, with a face like a weathered cliff and eyes that held no mercy. Callahan. Donovan rose, spreading his hands in mock welcome. So glad you could join us. Cut the pleasantries. Killian's voice was ice. You threatened my family. That's not something I take lightly. Family. Donovan's gaze slid to Isla. Is that what she is now? The stray you picked up off the street? He laughed. I'd heard you'd gone soft, Callahan, but this is something else. Say what you came to say, Donovan, before I lose my patience. What I came to say is simple. Donovan leaned forward, his smile disappearing. The South Side belongs to me now. The shipping routes through the harbor, mine. The construction contracts downtown, mine. You're going to sign over every piece of territory I want, and in exchange, I'll let your little family live. And if I refuse? Then we start with the woman, then the sister in the wheelchair, then the pretty little girl with the yellow flowers. Donovan's eyes glittered. I hear she's been asking about you, Callahan, calls you the nice man. Isn't that sweet? Something snapped in Killian's expression. The careful control vanished, replaced by something ancient and terrible, the look of a man who had killed before and would kill again without hesitation. You shouldn't have mentioned my daughter. Donovan laughed. What daughter? The one who ran away? Everyone knows she's been gone for years. Not that daughter. Killian's voice was soft, deadly. The one who's been hiding in the rafters for the past 20 minutes. Isla's head snapped up, and her breath caught. A figure was descending from the shadows above the warehouse floor. A woman in her early 20s, red-haired and fierce-eyed, moving with the quiet confidence of someone who had learned to survive in the margins. She dropped the last few feet and landed in a crouch, a gun in each hand. Hi, Dad, Kara Callahan said. Miss me? Everything exploded. The Donovans reached for their weapons, but Killian's men were faster. Gunfire erupted from every direction, the warehouse transforming into a battlefield of muzzle flashes and screaming men. Isla dove behind a stack of crates, her heart hammering, watching in horrified fascination as chaos consumed the room. And through it all, Kara fought like a demon. She moved with a dancer's grace and a soldier's precision, taking down Donovan's men one by one. Isla saw her back to back with Killian at one point, father and daughter moving in perfect sync, and something about it made her eyes burn with unexpected tears. Then she saw Donovan. He was moving toward the side door, slipping away, while his men fell around him. And clutched in his hand was a phone, raised, pointing at Isla, taking a photograph of her hiding place. Evidence. Leverage. A weapon to use later, when the smoke cleared. Isla didn't think. She grabbed a piece of broken pipe from the floor and ran. She hit him from behind, the pipe connecting with his shoulder hard enough to send the phone flying. Donovan spun with a snarl, his fist catching her across the face, and pain exploded through her skull. She hit the ground, tasted blood, saw stars. You stupid bitch! Donovan stood over her, his face twisted with rage. You think you can... The gunshot was deafening. Donovan staggered, looked down at the bloom of red spreading across his chest, looked up at the woman standing behind him. Kara Callahan lowered her gun. That's for threatening a child, she said calmly, And for being a piece of shit my whole life. Donovan crumpled to the floor and didn't move. Isla lay there gasping, her vision swimming. Hands found her. Killian's hands, she realized, warm and desperate, pulling her upright. Isla, Isla, look at me. Are you hurt? I'm okay. She wasn't sure that was true, but she said it anyway. Is it over? It's over. He pulled her against his chest, his whole body shaking. It's over. Behind him, Kara stood with her arms crossed, watching her father with an expression Isla couldn't read. So, she said, are you going to introduce me to your girlfriend or what? Killian laughed, a broken, desperate sound that might have been a sob. He released Isla just long enough to cross to his daughter and pull her into a crushing embrace. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Kara. For everything. I know. She hugged him back, her fierce facade crumbling. I know, Dad. I'm sorry too. Isla watched them, father and daughter, finally reunited after 3 years of searching, and felt tears streaming down her face. She thought about the bracelet on her wrist, the gift that had started everything. She thought about Lily, safe in the basement with Fiona. She thought about the family she'd never had and the one she'd somehow stumbled into. When Killian finally pulled back, his eyes found hers across the warehouse floor. Come home with us, he said. Both of you. Please. Kara looked at Isla, really looked, taking in the bracelet, the tears, the fierce protectiveness in her stance. You're the one from the alley, she said slowly, the one I gave Mom's bracelet to. You saved my life. Isla touched the silver chain. I never got to thank you. Thank me by taking care of my father. A ghost of a smile crossed Kara's face. He's a disaster without someone to keep him in line. I'll do my best. Killian's hand found hers. Kara's hand found his. And together, the three of them walked out of the warehouse and into the cold, clear night. The war was over, and something new was just beginning. 1 year later, Isla stood in the garden and watched her daughter chase Kara through the rose bushes. The summer sun was warm on her face, the air thick with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh-cut grass. Lily's laughter echoed across the lawn, bright and untroubled, the sound of a child who had finally stopped running, who had finally found a place to call home. So much had changed in 12 months. The Donovans were gone, their empire dismantled, their territory absorbed, their name already fading into the kind of whispered legend that criminals became when they crossed the wrong family. The Murrays had retreated to Chicago with their tails between their legs after Killian made it clear that Isla and Lily were under his permanent protection. The threat that had hung over her head for years had finally, mercifully, lifted. And the Callahan family had begun to heal. Kara had moved back into the estate, taking over a wing of the house and slowly rebuilding her relationship with her father. It wasn't easy. 3 years of anger and grief didn't disappear overnight, but they were trying. Isla saw them together sometimes, walking in the gardens or sitting in the library, talking in low voices about things she didn't ask about. The wounds were still raw, but they were closing. And Fiona was a miracle. She was standing now. Not for long, not without support, but standing. The physical therapy Isla had started a year ago had progressed beyond anything the doctors had predicted. Fiona still used her wheelchair most of the time, but she'd taken her first steps last month, her hand gripping Isla's arm, tears streaming down her face. I didn't think I'd ever... She'd stopped, swallowed, started again. Thank you for not giving up on me. I told you I wouldn't. I know. I just didn't believe you. Fiona had smiled, a real smile, warm and unguarded. I do now. Mama, look! Isla turned to see Lily racing toward her, a crown of daisies clutched in her small hands. At 4 years old, she was all gangly limbs and boundless energy, her auburn hair flying behind her like a banner. Kara helped me make it. Lily skidded to a stop and held up her creation. It's for you. It's beautiful, baby. Isla crouched down and let Lily place the crown on her head. How do I look? Like a princess. Lily beamed. The prettiest princess in the whole world. I'd have to agree. Killian's voice came from behind her, low and warm. Isla turned to find him watching her with those pale blue eyes, a soft smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He was wearing a white linen shirt, open at the collar, his dark hair ruffled by the breeze. He looked younger than he had a year ago, lighter, as if the weight he'd been carrying had finally begun to lift. Flattery will get you everywhere, Mr. Callahan. I'm counting on it, Ms. Brennan. He crossed the lawn and stopped in front of her, his gaze traveling over her face like he was memorizing every detail. You look happy. I am happy. She reached up to touch his cheek. Happier than I ever thought I could be. Good. He caught her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. Because I'm about to try to make you even happier. What do you mean? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Isla's heart stopped. 1 year ago, you collapsed on the street outside my restaurant. Killian's voice was rough with emotion. You were sick and scared and running from monsters I didn't know about yet. And when I saw the bracelet on your wrist, when I realized you might be the key to finding my daughter, I told myself that was why I helped you. That it was about Kara, about the bracelet, about paying a debt. He opened the box. Inside lay a ring, a deep emerald surrounded by diamonds, set in a band of Celtic knotwork that echoed the bracelet still clasped around her wrist. But I was lying to myself. He sank to one knee in the grass. The truth is, I saw you, and something in me recognized something in you. A strength I didn't expect. A kindness I didn't deserve. A light that cut through the darkness I'd been living in for so long, I'd forgotten what daylight looked like. Killian, you saved my sister. You helped me find my daughter. You gave my family a reason to come back together after years of being broken. His pale eyes glistened. But more than that, you saved me. You looked at a monster and saw a man worth loving. I don't know how. I don't know why. But I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for it. Lily had gone quiet, watching with wide eyes. Kara and Fiona had appeared at the edge of the garden, drawn by some instinct, their faces bright with anticipation. Isla Brennan. Killian held up the ring. You stumbled into my life by accident, but I want you to stay by choice. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to raise your daughter as my own and give you more children if you want them. I want to build a life with you, a real life, full of laughter and love and all the things I thought I'd never have again. He took a breath. Let it out. Will you marry me? The world seemed to hold its breath. The wind stilled. The birds went quiet. Everything waited for her answer. Isla looked at the man kneeling before her, this complicated, dangerous, beautiful man who had offered her sanctuary when she needed it most, who had protected her daughter, healed his family, opened his heart despite every reason to keep it closed. She thought about the girl she'd been a year ago, starving and feverish, collapsing on a stranger's doorstep with nothing but a bracelet and a prayer. She'd been so sure that her story was over, that the best she could hope for was survival. But she'd been wrong. Her story was just beginning. Yes. The word came out as a whisper, then stronger. Yes, Killian. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for her all along. Then he was on his feet, pulling her into his arms, kissing her with a tenderness that made her heart ache. "Mama's getting married!" Lily's shriek shattered the moment, and suddenly they were surrounded. Lily jumping up and down, Kara laughing, Fiona wheeling herself across the grass to join the celebration. "Welcome to the family," Kara said, pulling Isla into a hug, officially this time. "I was already family." "I know." Kara pulled back, her green eyes, so like her father's, bright with emotion. "But now we get to make it legal." The celebration lasted all afternoon and into the evening. There was champagne and laughter and an impromptu dance party in the garden, with Lily twirling in circles until she collapsed, dizzy and giggling, into Killian's arms. Later, after Lily had been tucked into bed and the house had gone quiet, Isla stood on the balcony of the master bedroom and looked out at the stars. "Regrets?" Killian's voice came from behind her, soft and uncertain. "Not a single one." She turned into his arms, resting her head against his chest. "I was just thinking about how strange life is, how the worst moments can lead to the best ones, if you're brave enough to keep going. You're the bravest person I know." "I'm not brave, I'm just stubborn." She smiled up at him. "Too stubborn to give up, even when I probably should have." "Then thank God for stubbornness." He kissed her forehead. "Because it brought you to me." They stood there together, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the stars wheel overhead. Isla thought about the journey that had led her here, the pain, the fear, the desperate flight from a past that wanted to destroy her. She thought about a silver bracelet given in kindness by a stranger who turned out to be family. She thought about a man who had looked at her broken pieces and seen something worth keeping. She had collapsed near a monster and found a home. She had given up everything and gained more than she ever dreamed. She had learned that sometimes the darkest roads lead to the brightest destinations, and that love, when you least expect it, can find you anywhere, even on a cold street, wearing a dead woman's bracelet with nothing left to lose. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too." Killian held her tighter. "Always." And as the night wrapped around them like a blanket, Isla Brennan finally let herself believe in happy endings. She'd earned this one. Thank you all for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, as your support is essential for me to continue creating content like this.